Hey guys, FilthyRobot here, finishing. We shouldn't use continuing here, should we?
No, we shouldn't.
Finishing our tutorial campaign with the Arumba. I think we met the goals we wanted. We have one last set of goals. We want to talk about personal unions in the HRE. So we've switched perspective over to Poland just for temporarily, just to take a look at personal unions. Couldn't quite make it happen in our previous game without spending a lot of time on it. Mm-hmm. And we're actually in the HRE as Poland, right?
No, we're not.
We're not.
We're not a member of the HRE, but we wanted to talk about the HRE, and we were trying to decide, okay, if we're going to talk about personal unions, we really need to be the tag Poland, because we can get a guaranteed personal union really easily. But we would have to tag switch mid-video if we ended up covering both topics. So just decided that, Great Britain is done, and we're going to be Poland now. But they're not part of the HRE. To become part of the HRE, it is possible with Poland. I believe you have to have under 100 development in order to actually be allowed to do it. All you have to do is somehow conquer some land that's in the HRE and then move your capital into the... If your capital is part of the HRE's territory, then you are prince automatically. I think you can't move it manually. I think you do have to ask the emperor for admittance if you're external to the empire. So... we're going to let the game just kind of run in the background. We're going to take a few alliances and stuff here. Sure, we'll ally Brandenburg. Let's ally Lithuania.
Good idea. I guess I could send a diplomat to Lithuania too. Improve relations. Yeah,
improve relations with them. We'll take a royal marriage with them. Poland starts off with a union over nobody, but they have two vassals. One of them is a march. We talked about that in one of the last episodes. So Moldavia in the southeast is a march. They're their bastion against the Ottomans, and then they also have a vassal called Mazovia, which I don't remember. There's either an event or a decision or something that causes you to instantly annex them, or maybe it's when you annex them, you can move your capital to is it Wisna? I think no, not Wisna. It's the higher development in Warsaw. So yeah, let's talk about the HRE while we wait for the union to pop up with the Lithuanian peoples.
Okay.
So let's go to the Imperial map mode, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Under political. It's not one of the ones that I've keybound because you don't use it too often. We talked about this at one point, but you were still fairly new, and we didn't really go into too much detail. But looking at this, and you've also had a it was a Brandenburgian campaign, I think?
Yeah, I'm in the process of playing a Brandenburgian campaign. Yep.
Okay, so Brandenburg starts off the game in 1444 as an elector. So there are 7 electors by default. They each get a vote. If by some chance there's a tie in the vote, then the existing emperor always wins. The emperor himself, of course, gets a vote. So what is it about the HRE that you would like to know? Because I'm trying to decide, where do we talk about?
What do we talk about? So fundamentally, we need to know about interacting with the HRE. So there is something to do with the joint defense and the taking of land in the HRE. So maybe diplomatic stuff that is related to the HRE, and then stuff the HRE can do would be useful.
Okay.
Oh, we got a personal union with Lithuania.
That was that quick, huh?
Yep.
There goes the year, huh? So yeah, the event just says, hey, what, we get him?
Says Poland forms a personal union with Lithuania under somebody. The event effective monarchy in Poland happens. Elective our monarchy. Excuse me, we're taking it.
Yep, and there's another decision which says you don't take it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the decision we talked about before, where there's a 25% AI factor that they'll just say, nah, we don't want Lithuania, which is what they did in our other one. So I guess since this has already happened, let's just talk about this first, then we'll talk about the HRE. So,
yeah, sounds good.
How does a PU differ from vassalage or client states or colonial nations, trade companies, marches? Personal union is still an independent tag. They have their own, they actually share your ruler. So one thing you'll notice is that unlike a vassal who has their own ruler, we are King Kazimierz Jagiellon. And if you right-click on Lithuania, it says Poland's ruler. So they generate monarch points for themselves based off of our ruler. We rule both nations.
Okay. A PU, see, they don't pay us any income.
No, they don't pay taxes like a regular vassal would. But for their subject interactions, if you go to the subject tab, they do have one that effectively allows you to tax them, which is called siphon income.
Okay.
You can take 50% of the yearly income, in this case 75.82 ducats, worsens our relations by 100. This recovers at a rate of, I think, 10 per year. And there's a cooldown of it, I think, of 10 years. So by the time you could click it again, they will have forgotten about what you did.
Okay.
Generally speaking, if they have low liberty desire, I almost always siphon their income because I think I can spend the money better than they will.
Yep.
Like normal, you can pay off other nations, any subject's debt. You can grant them lands, which in some cases can be advantageous if you're over 100% overextension or something, and you don't want to be at that danger point. You can give some land to a subject, just like a vassal or march. Enforce religion, enforce culture, support loyalists is just something you can do. You spend some money to lower liberty desire, embargo rivals. You'll notice that there's no option in here to enable scutage. Did we talk about scutage with vassals?
I don't remember one way or the other.
Okay, take a look at Mazovia.
Okay.
It's the second decision from the top. It's called enable scutage. They pay an extra 50% of the normal amount of money that they would pay. So in this case, as Poland, we have vassal tax of 39.7%. So scutage would increase that to roughly 60%. And it's telling you what it would be. 0.28.
We unpause for a second. I want to see if it clicks up to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you can't unpause when I pause, right?
Right.
Now, disabling scutage causes 25% liberty desire, so it's a dangerous thing to turn on if they're close to the 50% liberty desire threshold, but enabling it doesn't do anything as far as liberty desire goes. When you do it, they no longer join new wars. Wars that they're currently in, they will stay in, but new wars, whether they're defensive or offensive, will not happen. So you can actually use that to your advantage in some cases. Let's say, for example, I'm Poland and I want to integrate Mazovia. But in order to integrate Mazovia needs to be at peace. You can't integrate a nation, you can't start the process of integrating a nation while they're at war. Okay. Ironically, you can be at war, but they can't. So if you enable scutage on a vassal you intend to annex,
they can never be at war, and therefore it won't fuck up your process starting?
You can start the process whenever it becomes available, yeah.
Okay.
So, but generally speaking, unless you really need the money, or in that one circumstance where you're trying to integrate, like you need to declare the war today because they've got multiple forts and it's a timing shot or timing window or something, but you can't start the integration for 2 years because it's only been 8 since you made them a vassal, for example. But the problem is that you're usually better off. You've already tied up a relationship slot on the vassal, so that means you have one less ally than you could otherwise have, and if they were in the war, they would be contributing to relative strength of the alliance, affecting enthusiasm, etc., etc. So a lot of times you want to have those troops and the general that he would have in the army in the war. So
yeah, the general in particular sounds like a pretty awesome one. If they have a great general, it's nice to have them.
Especially once you've learned how to control them and do that thing where you lead the army around, tell them where to go. Yeah. So back to Lithuania then, and with the personal union. Now that you understand scutage, we could talk about how you don't have that option. You cannot enable scutage on a subject, on a personal union member, because they always join your wars, no matter what. They have to. So you'll see that enable scutage is not an option. Now, with the Union, they can become rebellious, which is what we saw in our previous tag as Great Britain, where Sweden and Norway, at the beginning of the game, start in a union under Denmark. If they have over 50% liberty desire, Lithuania could seek support from our rivals or anyone that would support them and try to declare an independence war. If they were to do that, they have to get a huge amount of war score, and then they usually demand independence. It's worth knowing that a subject, any subject, cannot declare independence if they are allied with you in an existing war. So if Lithuania has, say, the support of my fiercest rival, and I'm afraid they're going to declare, an easy way to prevent that is just declare war on a one-province minor and say, sorry, Lithuania, I've got you war blocked. You can never declare war. That makes sense? Okay. You just declare an easy war and you just stay at war until you can fix the liberty desire issue. I see you're giving away all of our land.
I was just seeing what I could do with this. I want to see how far I could go with that. So one of the questions around that. So how do if I am fighting a guy who has a personal union, let's say we're fighting Denmark, and I want to break Sweden off of them, how do I increase their desire to have the rebellion or leaving desire, whatever it is called exactly? Okay, independence desire.
Liberty desire is what determines their whether or not they're going to demand independence or want independence. The threshold's 50. If you can get their liberty desire above 50, then they will want independence always. So how do you raise liberty desire? Go back to the subjects tab, and let's just take a look at what causes liberty desire for our subject. We can use that as a
relative power gives them plus.
Okay, so relative power to Poland. So example being, if you wanted to make Sweden declare war on Denmark, declare war on Denmark and annihilate all of Denmark's troops. That will make
But then we're going to be
relative
fighting
power.
Sweden anyways at that point, right? Because Sweden's going to get called in when we declare war on Denmark. And
This
if I
is-
was trying to-
Yep, that's true. If you could somehow engineer it so that you kill all of Denmark's troops while leaving Sweden's troops alone, and then peace out Denmark, then Sweden's probably going to try to break free, because they'll have a huge army while Denmark has none. Historical friends,
personal
you
unions
can't
get called
influence.
into defensive things, though, right? Like not just offensive; it's all wars that they get.
Yes,
So-
and
okay.
just like all subjects outside of protectorates, subjects have no choice.
Yeah.
Even if they're rebellious, if I declare war on somebody, a rebellious vassal's still going to get pulled into the war, unless they are a scutage vassal. And also, it's worth stating you can't enable scutage on a march, because they don't pay taxes anyway.
Okay.
So marches have to join wars no matter what. Okay, what else affects liberty desire? We've got opinion. So,
What's this historical friends crap? Is that just certain countries are going to have that modifier and certain ones
Yep.
aren't?
tag specific. In this case, it's something to try to simulate history appropriately, saying that like there's only a few instances of it. I think Poland and Lithuania have it. Castile and Portugal have it, so that Castile just doesn't turn around and kill Portugal. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so you're not going to see that too often. Opinion and trust, you can't directly affect opinion. I think at one point there was a way you could like lower opinion of other nations, but then they changed spy network stuff, and now it's sabotage reputation affects diplomatic reputation. It doesn't affect their opinion. So you can't make.
reputation does have looks like a very small impact here.
I believe it's like up to 5% per diplomatic reputation. So you could potentially raise liberty desire by like 10 to 15% if you sabotage reputation.
Yeah.
And late game, if you actually get all the way up to agitate for liberty, that's like a straight up plus 25% liberty desire.
Got it. Yeah, but that was like Tech 1 billion.
Beyond that, you could support rebels. Let's say, for example, I don't know how, but if Denmark has Swedish rebels, for example, and they want independence for Sweden, you could support Denmark's rebels when they fire. If they succeed in transferring land to Sweden, then you would see that row that says events, province defections, and provinces developed by Overlord. That would end up going positive because they had gained land via province defection. That would make them want to become become free.
So pretty limited though. Sounds like option wise to break up personal unions.
Yeah, outside of that, there is one other thing you can do, which is to trash the Overlord's prestige. If they have negative prestige, there is a chance they can lose the Union on monarch death.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
When you
Where does
hover
it say
over, right-click on Poland, on our nation.
Okay.
When you hover over in the 5th row, it says leads personal union with Lithuania. Hover over the Lithuanian flag. It says, there's a couple things we need to talk about. It says, chance of Poland inheriting Lithuania is 0%, not possible to inherit unless the union has been stable for 50 years. There's two different things you can do. Number one, after you've had a personal union for 50 years, you are allowed to integrate them the same as you would integrate a regular vassal, which only take 10 years. The amount of time it takes is dependent on the development of the subject, so the bigger the subject, the longer it will take, the more diplo points it'll take. It's 8 development per diplo. Sorry, 8 diplo per development. However, if you have a huge advantage in development relative to the subject, then, and again, we can't actually see the number because it hasn't been 50 years, this tooltip will change and it'll say there's like a 6% chance of inheriting Lithuania. What that means is that every time your ruler dies, there's a 6% chance that you will inherit the subject. And interestingly, that roll is for all subjects. So if you inherit the first, you'll inherit all subjects at the exact same time. So the way that you can increase the chance of inheritance is have more development than the subject and have high diplomatic reputation. Each point of diplomatic reputation increases the chances.
And kill off your leaders a lot.
Yeah, if you make your ruler into a general, you'll cycle your leader more often, and you could theoretically inherit more often. Yes.
I wanted to touch on that again. So I did that in one of my games, made my leader a ruler, and he did die at some point. But he died when he wasn't leading an army.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just his death chance as a whole increases for the rest of the game, rest of his lifespan after he's been made a leader. You can't unmake him a leader, right?
Correct. Okay, so we can revisit that topic. So if you have when your ruler dies as a monarchy, you lose 1 stability. If your ruler is made into a commander or a general, and while he's leading troops or leading a siege, he dies, then you lose 2 stability.
Right.
However, the reason why it's somewhat disadvantageous to make your ruler into a general is that every character, whether it's a general, a ruler, or a advisor, they all have a yearly death chance based on their age. And as they get older, the death chance increases. It's called a mean time to happen, so they're just more and more likely to die as they get older. When you create a general, they also have a separate tick, separate from the age, just for being a general. And as you mentioned, you can't unmake them a general. So even if they're not leading troops...
Yeah, that's when he died, he wasn't leading troops for me.
You're practically doubling the chance of your ruler's death based on making him into a general. So in this case...
It's kind of good to do that to cycle shitty rulers.
Yes, definitely. Like if you have a 001 or something, he's like this god-awful ruler, you would probably want to make him into a general right away, just because the sooner you get rid of that guy, the better. Even if he did lead an army, and you lost 2 stability, just think about it. I mean, it's an extra 100 admin points to buy that stability back. How quickly would you recoup that if your next leader is a 333?
Yeah, exactly.
3 points per month. It's going to take you, 33 months roughly? And
so about 3 years.
Yeah, you're right there. You've recouped those points.
And maybe more than that, honestly, because in 3 years, if he's a 333 compared to a 000 or a 111, you're actually getting monarch points in the other categories, not just the ones you paid for stability. So you're more than making that up. I had a question about a related question to that about disinheriting your heir. Any thoughts on that?
If I would say if he's below average and you can afford the prestige shit, do it always.
Okay.
If you got like a 222 heir, anything below average, anything under 9 points, I would probably disinherit. Okay. I think the cost is 20 prestige?
No, I think it was I want to say it was 100.
It's not 100. I know that for sure. I think it might be 50. It's 50. Yeah.
Where do we see that? So if I'm looking over our heir,
we can't see it as Poland because we've got a special government type.
Okay.
We don't have the same type of succession.
There was a play as Lithuania or something. Isn't there like a play as one of your vassals option?
That's when you release a vassal. Remember when we released Galicia in Spain?
Okay, so anything else about PUs that you want to talk about?
I mentioned briefly the whole negative prestige thing affecting whether or not the union breaks. I don't see anything in the tooltip here when we hover over it. It should say
hidden modifiers.
I don't know. My information could actually be dated here, but it used to be that the criteria for a union breaking would be that the overlord has to have negative prestige, and then on monarch death, the union would just end. They would just spawn their own ruler, and they would just be free instantly, just like that. So I don't know 100%. We probably need to check the wiki to confirm, but that's what comes to mind in my experience.
If you play as a PU or as a vassal, are there any ways that you can increase your chances of getting out of that? I mean, I suppose if you're controlling your forces and you get called into war, you can not help your overlord.
Oh yeah. Great example. Again, let's say we're playing Sweden. Norway starts off very loyal because they're much weaker than both Denmark and Sweden. Okay. Let's say you start your game in 1444 as Sweden. Denmark declares a war on somebody. You don't help at all. They lose a whole bunch of men. Denmark ends up with a very, very small army, and all of a sudden Norway has more liberty desire because of the relative strength. Then you ally Norway. 2 rebellious subjects can ally each other.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then once you've allied Norway, they will factor in your regiments as relative strength of the alliance as well. So if you can obtain that initial alliance, now Norway's going to never want to break the alliance because relative strength is going to be much, much higher now.
Yep.
Beyond that, you can do things like improve relations with your overlord's rivals, who are more likely to want to support your independence because they want to see their rival get weaker.
Okay. How do you support independence? You have to be asked for that? Or no, it's an option. Like you can send out a diplomatic support independence somewhere? Where is that under? Just scrolling through these.
Yeah, just right click on Sweden. It's in the top area, Alliance Actions, third one from the top, support independence.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Got it.
Poland cannot reach Denmark. Loyal attitude towards Denmark. So right now, Sweden is loyal, which means he's got less than 50 liberty desire. So he doesn't want to break free. He'll only ever ask for independence if he's above 50% liberty desire.
Got it.
So yeah, it was funny. You said, "Oh, there's no way we can handle both these topics in one episode," but we haven't barely even talked about the HRE, and it's already been almost 20 minutes. Yeah,
but there's not a lot much. I mean, we could certainly do another episode if we wanted to, but I don't think there's more than about 5 minutes talking about the HRE. Do you?
No, not really. One thing we could do is, depending on what we end up doing in our next campaign, which I think it's important to mention that we are not stopping. Like, we're going to keep playing. We're starting fresh now that Filthy knows what he's doing.
We've had a falling out. We have to end this immediately. We had no plans to do this. We've had a massive falling out.
That's true.
Arumba and I disagreed about the 1,000th place in one of the decimals in one of his spreadsheets, and because of that, we're never speaking again. So,
did you watch my stream? That actually happened? I was complaining about the thousandth word, 1,000th place, rounding in last night's stream. Anyway,
no, I wasn't watching your stream, but that's hilarious.
That is funny. Yeah. One thing that might end up happening is if we end up playing a nation in Europe for our next series, then we could potentially talk about the HRE a whole lot more. But we could do a quick little summary now.
Yeah, quick summary. So 7 electors, and actually 8 then, because the emperor votes, but he doesn't count as elector, right? So,
to my memory, let me just check real quick to see. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 electors, and maybe I'm mistaken. I don't think the emperor actually gets a vote. That was a misspeak.
Okay. So seven electors here. Majority wins. So if everyone is voting for someone different and you have 2 votes, you'll win.
Yes, unless there's a tie and the existing tie, one of them is the emperor, in which case the tie goes to the emperor.
Sure. You either start in or outside of the HRE. The emperor defends foreign invasions into the HRE, right?
Yes.
So like everyone basically, does all of the HRE go to war, or is it the emperor plus the targeted province goes to war?
Okay, great example. I'm France. Yeah. I attack, say, I don't know, pretty commonly I'll attack Savoy. Savoy is inside the HRE. If we go to the Imperial map mode, we can see that Savoy's capital is inside the HRE, which makes them a prince of the empire. Since France is not a prince inside the empire, he's an external threat. And when France declares war on Savoy, Savoy's defensive calls to arms go out to all of his allies, and an extra defensive call to arms goes out to the emperor. The emperor still has a choice. He's not forced to defend them, but if he says no, it's the same thing as if you dishonored an alliance call from a regular ally. You lose like 50 prestige, you lose diplomatic reputation, and in addition to that, you also get like minus 50 opinion with every prince because you didn't defend the empire. That's the whole reason they elected you emperors, to protect them.
Yep.
So pretty much always the emperor is going to defend, especially if the emperor is an AI. They will always honor a defensive call unless they're incredibly weak. And or if for some dumb reason the princes, the electors elect the Palatinate with like 3 provinces, in which case he's very weak and he'll usually want to avoid wars. Okay. The problem is the Palatinate's like really diplomatic. Like they improve relations with all the electors, they get alliances with the electors, and they kind of scroll their way around. And they get voted emperor sometimes.
Yep.
So Austria gets to join defensively, and then from there, France has to fight a pretty big enemy in addition to Savoy's allies. Okay, next.
So there's some penalties, diplomatic penalties, if you're inside the emperor. So the couple things I've encountered. So if I ally the emperor, I can gobble up land in the HRE without calling him into wars.
Yes, if you are allied to the emperor and you are an existing prince, then you can declare war on other princes so long as the imperial reforms have not been passed down to the point where you are no longer allowed to declare internal wars.
Got it.
So you'll see in the Holy Roman Empire interface.
Yeah.
On the right hand.
Reforms on the right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 reforms. The one I'm talking about is very, very far down, I think. Ewiger Landfried. Force member states to solve their disputes in courts of law rather than on the battlefields. Disables internal HRE wars, so they can no longer declare war on each other. If, as the emperor, you're able to pass every single reform, then you are able to just integrate instantly every single prince.
It's pretty cool.
0% autonomy, as if you were a leader of a personal union and you inherit every country. And I think the pop-up actually says inherited everyone.
That's pretty awesome. So tell me about Diplo hits if you are inside the empire and you are allied with the emperor, so you're not fighting the emperor every time, and you start taking HRE land. What happens in terms of being asked to give back land? What happens in terms of aggressive expansion? What happens in terms of Diplo hits? Like there's modifiers in there, right?
Yeah, so regardless of whether you're a prince or not, it makes no difference. If a province is owned by the HRE. It's actually identified on the map, the Imperial map mode, as a province that belongs to the HRE. There is just a multiplicative increase in aggressive expansion if you conquer that province, always, whether you're external or internal. So expanding in the HRE is slower, it's dangerous, and it'll piss people off a whole lot more than expanding elsewhere. Same aggressive expansion rules apply if you attack the same religious group, they're going to be more upset. Proximity is very important. And then any other things you have, like a minus aggressive expansion impact, for example, could affect how you build aggressive expansion from expansion that way.
Okay.
So back to your question, you said, okay, if you are not allied to the Emperor, you can still declare internal wars until that reform is passed. But when you finish the war, the Emperor will demand that you return that land. It's called a demand unlawful territory request. They'll send you a diplomatic, guy saying, hey, give that land back to that prince. You shouldn't have done that, and you can choose to ignore that, in which case the province gets like plus 0.1% autonomy per month. It gets plus 10 unrest, lowered economic statuses like income, manpower, that kind of stuff. And that negative province modifier lasts for quite a while, like 10 or 20 years. In addition, every single prince in the empire will have like a negative 100 or negative 50 opinion of you because you took land from another prince. And that happens specifically when you decline to return territory that the emperor has demanded you do it.
Right.
Not when you take it. Taking it is just normal. It's just normal expansion, normal aggressive expansion. It's only when you decline does that opinion penalty go out. So let's say you're playing as Brandenburg and you're at some point wanting to become the emperor. It's very, very important that you avoid having that penalty apply, because then every prince and every elector is going to hate you and they won't vote for you anymore. Yep. So the workaround, the way to get past that, is to do what you mentioned, which is to ally the emperor. You can't call him in to attack the princes because that would be attacking a prince he's supposed to defend, but you can still declare wars on your own. So long as you're allied to the emperor and you have positive, good relations, generally speaking above 100, he will never demand that you'd return unlawful territory.
Good.
However, the risk is...
So this is an imperial map mode. I assume there's other empires than other imperial empires in this world somewhere? Because I look at this and everything's gray except for the HRE.
There's only one HRE, and that is the imperial map mode for the HRE. The only other thing that's even close to the HRE would be the Japanese daimyo and empire system. It's similar, but much, much smaller in scale as the HRE. They have no electors. They don't have free cities, which we haven't talked about. It's just basically one province miners that are a special government type that make extra money and provide tax income to the emperor.
So what are the benefits of being the emperor besides being able to inherit all the land?
If you open up the Holy Roman Empire interface, you can hover over the bottom right icon next to the Austrian flag. It's got like a little crown with a cross on top of it. Being emperor gives the following benefits. You get spy network construction rate plus 10%, bonus yearly prestige, bonus advisor slots. Not slots, sorry. Like instead of having three advisors presented to you at all times, you have 4 advisors presented to you at all times. An extra leader slot for generals and things, an extra diplomatic relations slot. So Austria starts the game off as the emperor, and they're allowed to have 5 relations instead of 4. In addition, depending on the size of the empire, most notably not the number of like development or how many provinces the empire has, but specifically how many individual tags, how many princes there are, affects the tax income that you get. You'll see that tax income plus 16, that's 2 ducats per year per free city, maximum of 8 free cities. They'll often get conquered, so if you're playing as the emperor, you're going to want to pay attention to that and make sure you're always trying to grant free city status to one province miners, so you're getting your extra income. Each individual prince is going to provide you with bonus force limit and manpower. The formula I don't recall, but more princes equals more force limit, more manpower.
Okay. Is there any way you can add a territory to the HRE?
Yes. If you are the emperor, you can always do it. Any land that you conquer that's outside the empire, in the province dialog, go click on like Hungary, a province directly adjacent to Austria's capital, Sopron.
Okay.
Left-hand side of the province interface, you can see a little button with a grayed out like eagle icon. Sopron is not part of the HRE.
Yep.
If I'm the emperor...
hold on a minute. Left side, where do I see that? Sorry?
Right below where it says autonomy 25%.
Yep. Okay, got it.
If you were to conquer land in Hungary and you own Sopron, once you've cored the land and you're the emperor, that button would actually turn into a clickable button to add the province to the HRE. And when you do that, it increases imperial authority by 1. Imperial authority is the thing that you spend to pass imperial reforms. Also, imperial authority gives you bonus votes. Electors want to vote for the emperor if imperial authority is very high. Okay.
And you can only do that if you're the emperor. So like if I conquered land as a prince, I can't add it to the HRE.
Yes, you can. You can, but the AI will never do it. So only, generally speaking, the player is going to be the one that increases the size of the HRE.
Okay.
Unless,
Cool.
for example, let's say you start the game off and somehow Brandenburg becomes the emperor as an AI and he conquers the Teutonic Order. Once he becomes the emperor, he'll have a vested interest in increasing the size of the empire, so he might click the button and add them to the empire. But generally, princes on their own won't just do it, because it doesn't help them.
Okay. So, anything else you want to tell me about the HRE?
There's one last thing. The bottom left-hand side of that flag and the imperial thing. There's other special actions that the emperor can take. They can bestow imperial grace, enforce religious unity, grant electorate, grant free city status, and then demand unlawful territory. We've talked about the bottom three. If for some chance an elector gets annexed and you're down on electors, then you can grant electorate status to a nation so long as they like you and they want to do it. They'll almost always vote for you if you grant it to them because it's a big opinion boost. Enforce religious unity says that you can demand a prince embrace the correct religion. I believe you can only do that after the Reformation War, which is based on Protestant and Catholic. And then finally, the top one, bestow imperial grace. This is where you sacrifice one imperial authority to increase opinion of a prince by plus 40. So if you're desperate to get an elector to vote for you, you can bestow imperial grace.
How long does that last for, that modifier? And that's above and beyond the normal improved, right?
Yeah, 10 years to my memory, but it's one of those things that doesn't actually have a tooltip telling you when it expires, so I don't know. I think it's 10 years, but I could be wrong. It'd be a wiki question.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, I think it's a good spot. You know, there's of course so much more that we could do. We could colonize more. We could do more client states, more colonial nations, more whatever. But I think Filthy, you've graduated. It's time for you to lead your own country now.
I think so too.
Let's go be teammates, right? You're not going to backstab me, are you?
I was gonna say that we should definitely have a discussion about what the rules of the game are going to be, so I can plan accordingly.
So there's some subtext there. We'll start off as allies, and then I'm going to backstab you. That's what you're saying. Is what I'm hearing.
I want to know ahead of time. If that's part of the rule set, then I won't be prepared for that.
If you say we're going to do a campaign as friends before we do a campaign where we're competitive, then I'm not going to backstab you. I promise. But
as I said, we'll talk about the rules when we don't want to do that this episode. We'll do that at the start of our next episode, right?
Yes. All right. Fair enough. Well, thank you guys for joining us in the tutorial series. I hope that it was beneficial to you, and it was a little bit kind of chaotic at times, but it's a very complicated game. It's changed so much since the beginning of time, and
it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of different systems involved, a lot of moving parts. It's been a lot of fun to learn. So I kind of hope the tutorial was as useful for everyone else as it was for me, because I mean, I've learned a ton from doing this.
Yeah, so. I mean, you've logged over 100 hours in the last month or so since we started doing this, so you're hooked, I think. Hook, line, and sinker. Well,
I'm certainly learning it enough. You're going to say hook, line, and sinker? Possibly. I'm enjoying it a lot right now. Yes.
Great. Good.
Cool.
Okay, we'll see you guys in the next series.
Thanks for watching.